evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 186th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star studio of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. Took me 2 times to do it, but here we are. We got severe weather outside, but we got a bigger storm ready for you with an awesome take. We're going to take a stroll down memory lane and have a little bit of a good time. And actually, we're going to have a lot of good time because I'm excited to have my guest back for his 3rd appearance tonight. But before we get to introductions, we're going to thank the people that make this show possible. That, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate is about to make someone a whole lot richer. Yes, you heard it here. During its latest Freestyle Live show on the company's Facebook page, Drew Estate announced that it will hold a Bitcoin sweepstakes. Yeah, you heard it here. Bitcoin with numerous incredible prizes during the upcoming Freestyle Live events, including a grand prize of 1 full Bitcoin for a lucky fan to be announced during February 17th, 2022 edition of the Freestyle Live. I don't know how much a Bitcoin is worth. I just know it's worth more than $1. So actually probably a lot more than $1. And so they're going to make somebody rich here, a lot richer than you were before you won the Bitcoin. I'm excited. I've never really gotten into that whole virtual coin stuff, but this is exciting stuff. So check it out. February 17, 2022. Someone's going to get a whole lot richer. All joking aside, a free, yes, 1 full Bitcoin. Look it up. I'm all kidding, man. This is exciting stuff. Drew Estate during this Freestyle Live event is going to give away a full Bitcoin. Really exciting. The company will randomly select names of 5 people who attend the online show and comment during specific times in each broadcast as potential winners of an assortment of fantastic prizes, including the Bitcoin. The 5 winners from each of these 3 shows will create the contestant pool of 15 people. So the 3 shows that you need to watch are coming up in 5 days, October 15th, on November 11th, and January 20th, just 1 month before the February 17th show. Tune in then. That's when you can get into win this full Bitcoin, a grand prize of 1 full Bitcoin. Pretty exciting stuff. I'm going to say Bitcoin a few more times. Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Drew Estate, thanks to them. Check out the Freestyle Lives on their Facebook page today. And without further ado, the rain is here. The fun has started. Yes, brought to you by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Tonight's guest, Mr. Justin Andrews of Diesel Cigars. Justin, how we doing?
Bear, what's going on, baby?
Oh, man. I feel like saying Bitcoin a couple more times, man.
Bitcoin. You got to mix in Ethereum, a few other things there.
I know there's so many too. There's like Dodge and have you done any of this, like this cryptocurrency thing?
Well,
have you?
First of all, sir, it's Doge.
Doge.
It's not Dodge.
Excuse me.
Or Dog. So if you're going to say it,
feel free to correct me. I'm a total neophyte when it comes to this stuff. So yeah, I mean, educate me.
I once was like you, Bear, and I resisted the tides of change and progress and new currencies. No, I got into it during the pandemic because I mean, shit, what else was there to do?
Yeah.
And so
buy GameStop stock. You could have gone.
Yeah, some AMC, some GameStop. I know enough to lose money. That's about it. And how to correctly pronounce Dogecoin. But that's about it. So yes, I'm in it. Am I doing well? Not really. It seems to be that I'm the last to jump in. And I missed the peak, and then I'm also the last to sell. So when it hits the bottom, then I'm like, okay, I guess it's time to get rid of this crap. So
I gotta say, man, I really, the whole thing is just kind of bizarre to me. I know a lot of people in the industry are like really into it, and I know people have made money like straight up, and like more power to them. Like I'm not being one of those like those people that are like just, well, that's just stupid. Look, if you're making money, I mean, how dumb can it be, right? I mean, it's as long as it's not immoral, or illegal,
right.
I mean, let's more power to you and everything. It's just the whole thing is just still kind of mysterious to me, and I don't like doing something I don't fully understand it, and I don't fully understand it, so I just don't know. Someone's gonna have to educate me, I think. But I mean, do you have any Bitcoin, or are you just into the Doge? I said it right this time.
I do. I have some Bitcoin, but the fun for me is in with the little guys, almost like penny stocks. That's where you can see some huge shifts and swings, and there's some potential there. But I mean, all in all, it's gambling. I don't care what anybody says. I've got friends that, man, they got really quiet on social media when some of these things took a dive. And the professionals that I know that actually, you know, have been working in the market for years and have portfolios of, you know, a lot of other people's money, and they basically tell me, look, it's gambling. If you've got a certain percentage of your investment portfolio that you want to risk and do, then fine, have fun with it. But, you know, don't shift everything from your 401k or your Roth over to Shibu Inu. So
See,
it's all in what you make it.
that's another thing too. Like, I just wondered if, like, I'm just like not in, like, I've heard the Shibu term. So I feel like so I know that that's something too. Like, I know you're not messing around with me there, but there's there's some that I've heard of, like, they're just kind of vaguely online, and it's just like, I'm like, man, I gotta get into this or just completely stay out of it forever. Like, because, like, I feel like if I don't, like, I'm gonna get way behind, and, like, there's no way to catch up at some point.
Well, there was a few that I would have never gotten into, except I had some friends drag me kicking and screaming into them based on their expertise, and I won't mention their name, Matt Booth, and and reluctantly I did it, and so now I got to send my cousin Tony to go visit him and help me recoup some of my money that I lost on this stock tip.
Awesome. Well, I'm eager to share some more stories tonight. Little bit not as virtual as cryptocurrency, but I'm about ready to light up a cigar here. I know you're already kind of smoking something there. So while I'm doing this, Justin, I'm gonna light up an Esteli Puro.
Very nice.
You know the cigar is my jam. I love it. I think it's fantastic. But what are you lighting up tonight?
So I'm currently about the first third into our latest Sunday gravy, the San Marzano, and this thing continually surprises me because obviously this is a this is a value proposition, not at the same price point as that Esteli Puro you're smoking there, but this thing has been always performs well. So this is what I'm starting off with tonight, and I've got a few others over here. I've got a Esteli Puro, got a Diesel Delirium, and one of the OG Whiskey Roast Sherry casks. So depending on how late you keep me up past my bedtime will determine how many of those cigars I smoke tonight.
I've got a Sunday gravy too. I've got a couple of Deliriums put back too, but we're gonna be moving soon, so I've already got some stuff packed up. But I've got a few of those put away because those cigars are outstanding. Loved them, but yeah, I love, the Esteli Puro is totally my jam. I love this cigar. I've told you probably I don't know 100 times at this point. You're probably tired of those text messages, but
well, in spite of what Ben Lee says about me, I feel like I make a good cigar every once in a while. So.
The whole Ben Lee rivalry is hilarious to me because just because you guys root for the same team and you're like from the same part of the country, it's awesome.
I still like Ben more than I like Aaron Loomis, so that's that's not saying much, but
fair enough.
If I had a list, Ben would be second from the bottom, so there's something there.
There you go. So I wanted to kind of do an introduction to the concept for tonight's show before we kind of got into the major point, and that was kind of what I wanted to do tonight a little bit with Justin. I invited Justin on, and I wanted to take a stroll down memory lane a little bit more further back than we're normally used to talking about when it comes to cigar journeys. And the reason I was doing that is I remember something Justin said a while back, and that was when we did the Gladiator show. You were thrilled to come onto the show and talk about
thrilled.
to come on the show and talk about anything but cigars. You love your job, but it was nice to take a quick break. So I thought, like, you know what? For the next time I have you on to talk a little cigars, we'll mix in a whole lot other non-cigar stuff and just kind of tie it into a couple of things. And I thought it would be really nice to kind of talk a little bit about our journeys in general. You know, how we grew up, what we're made of. You know, like, you know, just and kind of go like take some strolls down, like I said, down memory lane. And because the great thing is we're about the same age. I'm a little bit older than you, and you're way more advanced in life. So it says a lot about what I've done with my life.
I
But
wouldn't say that.
but
Your beard is way more advanced than mine, though. That's a fact.
that is a fact. Absolutely. So, so that's kind of the concept of tonight's show. So we're going to get to know Justin. We're going to get to know me a little bit as well as we talk a little bit about some stuff and enjoy a little bit of our childhood favorites and everything. So tonight, without further ado, tonight's major point is always brought to you by Power of the P. Brought to you by the people, cigar people, the people who know everything about a lifetime of service. Protocol Cigars is more than just about pool parties and good times. Well, maybe it is. But behind the fun is a motivation for service, a motivation for giving back. From the original Protocol Blue to the latest release in the Lawman series, Bastrier's Protocol has always been about honor, passion, and yes, the people. It's what their life's work has been and always will be about. Power of the P, Protocol Cigars. So, as I mentioned, tonight's major point, Justin, we're going to talk a little bit about just each other's background stuff. So, with it being October, as you're demonstrating the incredible construction that your good friend AJ Fernandez has put on this cigar here, we're going to talk a little bit about how I want to talk a little bit about Halloween. So, like Halloween as a kid, were you a Halloween person? Did you do a lot of dress up, or like was that a fun holiday for you? Any fond memories of Halloween, or were there other holidays in the Andrews household that kind of took precedent?
Dude, Halloween. I was all about Halloween. I would say it was Christmas, Thanksgiving. Obviously, were big deals for us because I've got a big family, and all of us were always around, but even more so for those two holidays. The summer holidays are always great. July 4th, Labor Day weekend were big stuff because growing up not too far from the beach. But Halloween was my jam. And the reason that Halloween became so important to me is it was because of Halloween that I learned how to play 5-card draw. I learned how to play poker. So I had a friend of mine in the neighborhood, and excuse me, we came back one night. We had all of our bags of candy, and his dad taught us how to play poker. And obviously, you ante in with a Tootsie Roll. I raised you a mini Snickers, and you raised me, a mini bag of gummy bears. So, man, it was like, honestly, now looking back at it, a lot of the gambling issues that I have right now started as a young child gambling over candy.
I was gonna say it's all coming full circle. I
just learned something about myself.
Yeah, it's all coming full circle. Look, the mission accomplished already for tonight's show. We're learning a little bit about ourselves too. This is fantastic.
The fact that I lost the value of a 05 Honda Accord today on football is all due to Halloween trick-or-treating back in 1994. Yeah, this is better than therapy, Bear. We just discovered something.
I like it. I like what I'm already accomplishing. I've always said that my show's a little bit deeper than most. We're already taking it to the couch a little bit. So okay, so here's what I love hearing from that. See, that's the kind of poker I grew up playing. It was 5-card draw, 5-card stud, 7-card stud. That's what my dad taught me. And so I never played Texas Hold'em until I got to college. And we're going to go back to Halloween for a second, but we're going to go along this gambling string. For those people who know me, I actually, for a while there through college, that's how I worked. That was my work. I played Texas Hold'em. So.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, we're the poker boom, the Chris Moneymaker thing. But I had that deeper background because of my dad, and I had no idea how to play it. A couple people taught me. It took me a few times around. Probably lost, I don't know, a couple $100, over the span of like I don't know, the first 6 months as I was learning it. And then it kind of, I kind of took it back to what I learned with my dad. And then it all of a sudden it started to click and it started to work. And you know, I always said I think my dad's proudest moment wasn't the fact that I earned money from playing cards. It was the fact that I finally learned how to do fractions.
Oh, that's great. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So remind me not to play any like charity Texas Hold'em events with you.
Well, I mean, if it's all for charity though, I mean, it's all for a good cause though, right?
Yeah, but it's got to go to my charity. Like that's the thing. We don't want your charity getting all the money.
It's fair. So when you so that's so going back to this, you would go back and you would play for candy and everything. See, that's the one thing I've never been able to do is play for anything like other than chips, like, or money. Like I've the whole like playing for like candy or cookies and stuff. Like I tried it a few times. It was just weird to me. Like I I I failed miserably at it. So if we want to do a charity tournament, just have there no be chips on the table, and I'll lose everything to you. It'll be fine. It'll be
You know, it's
fine.
funny. I'm sure as like 10 or 12-year-olds, however old we were, there was probably some arguments about the value of like, a Milky Way compared to like a Reese cup.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure those discussions took place. But man, I remember like getting out of class and just all day thinking like, I'm going to beat his ass today, and I'm going to come back home with some Starbursts, some Twizzlers. It was the coolest thing. So that's definitely my favorite Halloween memory prior to college. Which we Halloween in college it's a little different memories, and there's some probably some stuff for if you have a after hours show that we could discuss why Halloween is so special at East Carolina University. Go Pirates!
Well, speaking of college, I've got a little something here. That little gem that you gave me, actually. So
Oh yeah.
yeah. So this is I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here.
I forgot I sent you that.
um, and this was I wouldn't say the last Halloween costume you've put on, but this was, you said circa 2012. Hope everyone can see this. This is it took me a set, like, wait, I had to read the headline. I was like, I know who you're, I know this in my head, like I know, okay, this is a character. I know this, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it for like the 30 seconds I was just looking at you. And then I looked at the caption, and I was like, oh, that's fucking brilliant. That's awesome.
That
So
was one of my better ones. That was one of the best there. And man, what a strapping young man that is right there. Goodness gracious. That's in the early years of the cigar industry before I'd been beaten down and harassed by Ben Lee and Aaron Loomis and had my cigars start getting 83s and 84s.
well, I mean, but look at this. Your beard game's improved, and you still have all your hair. None of it gray. I mean, you're winning at life right now. It's pretty damn good here. Um,
Uh, that's a positive way to look at that. I've definitely added some pounds, but yeah, I'm happy. I still have some hair. I'm sure it's a little bit thinner than it was in that picture, but at least there's some good takeaways from that.
so, so my comment to you when you texted this to me last night was, I was like, well, I was a State Farm kid. My dad was a State Farm agent, and I actually worked for State Farm for a number of years too in my day job. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's great, instant rivalry and everything. Did you just find the character hilarious, or do you have like any connection to Allstate? I'm just
Yeah, I
curious.
was. It's funny. It was like that was like the early days of Instagram, and Instagram hadn't been around that long, and we were all still kind of like getting familiar with it. And I was watching. It was the commercials, so like I'm sure you've seen it, but the guys like you know, he's dressed up as the lady, like jogging, you know, with the headband, and she's got the little weights and distracting the guy while he drives, and you know, don't let mayhem slow you down. So I saw that commercial and I was like, that's what I'm gonna be for Halloween right there. Had a suit, had the, you know, it was, and let's be honest, you're in college. It was an inexpensive
Oh yeah, and it was a
Halloween
hilarious character,
costume.
man. He really was.
So,
Dean Winters. Dean Winters is the actor, and he was in Law and Order SVU for a couple of years, and you know he's been a character actor that he's made, you know, been in and out of stuff and everything. And I've always liked his persona, like you know, this character was just, and he was always like no bullshit, just like this gritty, rough, you know, rough around the edges guy, and he still is in the commercials. But then it's hilarious, like he plays like all these like inanimate objects or an old lady running, and it's just comical, man. It had me rolling. So, like, okay, so here's the question I wanted to pass to you. So, how many, like, if you had to guess over a series of time, like, who's been the more popular costume in insurance? Flo from Progressive, Jake from State Farm, or Mayhem?
dude, I've seen a lot of Jake from State Farm.
Right?
Um,
Like you said, the simple costume. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, my mayhem costume is funny. I ran into an old friend in Charlotte a couple years ago, her and her husband, and we were talking about just all sorts of things. Went to dinner, and she brought up that costume, and I remember I had people that I'd never met through friends of friends were like, "Oh, I saw your costume," because it was so current. Like the commercials had just started coming out, and again, I can't. Maybe it was like 2010, 11, 12, I don't know, somewhere in there. Um, and and so I didn't see it. Really didn't see anybody else dressed up as Mayhem. I did in the years following, because I think the commercials are more popular. Jake from State Farm, I did see a lot of him.
Yeah, I mean, that became like a real, like uh that became like a real thing too. So like, what was really funny is every year, without fail, every year until the year I quit, someone, one, two, but at least one person would come into our office and and to buy, borrow, whatever, a State Farm shirt so they could be Jake from State Farm.
Oh yeah,
It was
I believe it.
every single year. It was hilarious. But no, but Mayhem's probably my favorite character. It's interesting about these like commercial characters that like last a long time. Like Mayhem, I think had the perfect run. Like I look back upon his time and I look back fondly and stuff. Like I think the Jakes from State Farm, now we're in our second generation of a Jake from State Farm. I think
Yes,
I think Flo is played out. I think the Gecko from Geico is played out. Like
yes.
it's just kind of like, you know, at this point, I never thought I would say this, but bring back the cavemen from Geico at this point.
Please. Yes. Yes, we are on the same page. That Flo character, I mean, God, it's pretty awful. And like it makes me like I don't have Progressive, but I definitely would have Progressive just because of her. And the same thing with Jake from State Farm. It's like it's so funny because like there's studies about this with marketing, and I won't bore everybody with my marketing talk, but it's funny to see the adverse effect of some character that's like annoying or a commercial that just gets overplayed.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely, and I feel that same way. Get rid of the Gecko. I mean, toss his ass in the ocean wherever he's at, and Flo needs to go. Yeah, I'm over all of it. But I could use a little more mayhem, and that right there
Right.
goes back to your point that he left with us. He left us wanting more.
Right. Right.
He,
Exactly.
he didn't burn us out. We couldn't quote every commercial.
Well, this is why I've always said that I was like Budweiser had this shit figured out. They built a story over 15 years, if you can believe it. They started with the stupid frogs. They did all that stuff. Then they brought in geckos that were supposed to be observing these frogs and making fun of them, right? And wanting to be them or making fun of them. And then like the last breath of that whole thing was some random ferret. And it was just kind of like, wow. Like And when the ferret came along, I was like, okay, what the fuck is this? Like, but I'm like, and I thought about it, I'm like, this has been 10, 15 years of a story, of a ridiculous story. And
Yes.
it I mean, it just put it put Budweiser on the map. Did it make the beer taste better? Did it increase sales? I don't know, but it got Budweiser into the people's consciousness. Like, it was
It
brilliant.
certainly did. And you're right. That was a fun little journey they took us on there. But I remember when the ferret showed up, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on now?" Like we we had the frogs, we had the lizard. Now there's a ferret involved. Like I don't know. I'm still not going to go buy more Bud Light, but this is awesome.
So, um, so that kind of, the gambling around the table around Halloween and kind of the kind of growing up and everything. I have to imagine that the cigar that you're smoking. So we'll dip into a little cigar talk here. I've got one here as well, Justin. You're smoking the Sunday Gravy. I have to imagine that the story behind this goes back to your childhood. Where tell us a little about the story of Sunday Gravy. Where did the Sunday Gravy story come from with the new diesel product that you're smoking right now?
Yeah. So this is it's one of my favorite stories, and it's one that people either love and they love the name, or there's a lot of passion around this sauce versus gravy debate.
Oh yeah.
This everything, which is great for me, because I would like to say that I could have anticipated this much conversation around this fun little quirky limited edition product. But yeah, a lot of people get passionate about their sauce versus gravy. But it all started in AJ's factory. So for you, obviously, you guys know I've been working with AJ for many years, and there is things that AJ does, and things about him that, as someone who's been in pretty much every factory that has tobacco and in every part of the world, like, there's some things that AJ does that's just different. And he does things differently than our factories at STG. And one of the things that he's super passionate about, and it sounds simple, but is this low and slow method. And it's absolutely brilliant. Uh, I won't give away all the secrets, but it's some phrasing and some terminology and a process that's been, every time I'm with AJ and every time I spend time with AJ, whether it's here in the States or whether it's over in Nicaragua, we obviously we talk about tobacco 99% of the time. And so, as I was thinking of just what makes AJ special, the tobacco, a lot of the blends that we use, what separates us from a lot of people, I kept going back to this fermentation process. And one day I was reading a book, and the Sunday Gravy came up, and it wasn't necessarily about the gravy itself. It was about the process, and it was about the tradition of family gatherings on Sunday. Family gatherings, like, from in the South where I'm from, we'd have Sunday supper, or all of us would have lunch after church, and then you had Sunday Gravy. And through all these different cultures in different parts of the world, there's some form of this breaking of bread, communal family gathering. So as I learned more about Sunday Gravy, then it started to remind me of things that my mother would do when it came to cooking stews and roast, and a lot of the southern things that we do that aren't necessarily uh, using San Marzano tomatoes and Italian seasonings, but it's the same principle. And man, I was like, I love this idea, one, of family gatherings at least once a week, because we all need to do that more. I love, the way that AJ and I go through and our process on selecting tobaccos and understanding the genius that he is and what he does. And so all this stuff's going around. This is like my whiteboard, and I'm going through all these ideas, and I'm putting things together. And I was like, well, I'm going to come out with a cigar named Sunday Gravy. And I'm going to use this tobacco that AJ and I have talked about. try to create some separate things. And AJ was like, hey, this is great, but I've only got a limited quantity of this. I've only got a limited quantity of that. Obviously, all of us, there's a little bit of a tobacco shortage right now. And so then it hit me. I was like, well, I can't release a cigar every Sunday, obviously, even though that Sunday sauce by definition would evolve and change every Sunday. And I don't have enough tobacco to make a full-time line, but I can make enough cigars to release them every quarter. So when you think Sunday gravy and you think of the actual meal that happens on Sundays, Sunday gravy, the cigar is also evolving and also changing. And that's why, to most people's confusion, there's a new batch coming out every quarter. So I'm super excited about it. I mean, you guys know we get the question all the time, what's new, what's different? And the cool thing about this, batch number 2, which is coming out, it's actually starting to ship next week. Pecorino is a different blend. It's a different size. And yes, some people might like San Marzano better. Some people might like Pecorino better. But the cool thing is you've got something to look forward to every couple months when you go to your local tobacconist. There's going to be a new Sunday gravy there. So
well, I was gonna ask that.
hodgepodge.
I was gonna ask about San Marzano being like the subline. I was like, so is it the Sunday gravy San Marzano? And then I killed your roll right here. I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm sorry. I was like, that's perfect. You know.
No, I mean, and I get really excited about it because I feel like we're doing some cool shit, because the cigar you're smoking there, Esteli Puro, that was a lot. It took many, many years. I've told this story, the tobacco and how we literally did something that nobody else has ever done. And Sunday gravy in its own right, even though it's whimsical and it's fun, I mean, how cool is it to have a new cigar coming out every quarter with this small batch tobacco, this stuff that I didn't have enough to make a full-time line. So to me, it's fun. I get excited about this stuff because it's different. And as a cigar geek myself, I mean, I get excited with what a lot of these other companies do. And I like to smoke new shit, and I like to see, new approaches and different blends. So to me, this Sunday gravy checks a lot of boxes.
So there were a couple of questions I was going to ask about this, because the Sunday gravy concept, I mean, I thought it was a different direction. Obviously, well, it was a different direction. Obviously, they took in a lot of different ways. You know, that being a value brand, this quarterly release, this limited production, and everything. So we're never going to see San Marzano again necessarily, right? Like that's the intent, or right? There's just going to be this quarterly thing, or
well, you never know, but
never say never. Yeah.
Again, it all comes back to the tobacco. So yeah, as of right now, no. I mean, again, I'm only making a few of these things. Trust me, my company, myself, they would love if I could make 1 million of these cigars and launch a new cigar every quarter. But this thing is super limited because of the tobacco. But what I would like to do is this, after the Sunday gravy franchise kind of runs out, and I'm not able to make cigars for this, I would like to go back and kind of do a greatest hit. So again, if somebody, and we've got some cool initiatives in place where people can give us feedback on what batch they like the most. So yeah, if everybody loves San Marzano, or they love Pecorino, or they love Porcelino or Gabagool, I would love to be able to come back out with something like that. But as of right now, no, once these things are gone, they're gone.
It's interesting. Man, I was thinking, I'm just gonna throw something at you. You can totally steal this or trash it, whatever you want it. So whenever I think of Sunday gravy, I always think of Shocker, because it's like the thing for all guys. Like we go back to this film every time. You did the Gladiator show with me last year, but I go back to The Godfather, and I always go back to the scene where, before Michael kills McCluskey and Sollozzo, and Fats Clemenda's like talking to him, teaches him about the gun, and then he's like, hey, by the way, if you ever got to make food for 20 guys, here's what you do. And he teaching about how to make the sauce and stuff. And I was like, so if you ever want to make this diesel Clemenza, you know, I don't know if
I liked
that's,
it.
I don't know if that trademark's taken, but I think that'd be a cool rendition of it. Cause whenever I think of Sunday gravy, I think of that scene. And, but it's, no, this is an interesting concept because like I said, it's a break from Sunday gravy is a complete offshoot from like the other traditional names that we've seen. I mean, we've everything from like, you know, Whiskey Row, Delirium, the Disciple, the TAA exclusive, the Esteli Puro, like there's it's different. Now, the other thing that's different about this too is this is a value brand. Now here's where you can educate me a little bit here, Justin. So but before you took Diesel back, so to speak, I went and really drove it to more of a brick and mortar presence. It was an online cigar. Before you kind of took it back and redid this initiative and completely redid everything, and I enjoyed Diesels from the past. We've had this conversation. I always thought of Diesel as a value brand. And even now it's not like ultra premium, but it's like, I guess it's just, you know, it's, you know, brick and mortar premium, I guess, if I could throw a name to it. Why was it important for you to kind of go back to the roots a little bit and kind of reintroduce this value proposition of Diesel to the fans?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's everything you just said. Diesel was started and grew because it was a great cigar at an honest price, and it was a value cigar. Now, that being said, a lot of people misunderstand the value of a Diesel cigar. So because it was what we would call a direct consumer cigar, you didn't have the markup that happens at retail or the markup that happens at, you know, where a distributor. It was you're able to basically sell it, as which is the reason you go direct to consumer. That being said, every Diesel that's ever been made has been made by AJ Fernandez. AJ
Right.
Fernandez has been making Diesel since day one. They've always been long filler tobacco. They've never been short filler. They've never been Cuban sandwich. They've always been premium, hand rolled, great blends from AJ Fernandez. But the price was always a couple dollars cheaper because again, you're buying them online, you're buying them through a catalog. What I've done when I took the brand over is we created a pricing policy, which is pretty well known, to create a level playing field so that our retail partners and all of our partners have a fair chance to sell this cigar at a fair price and not be undercut by internet or by a catalog. That being said, everything that I've launched has been $8 to $10 to $12, and it's been great because 10 years ago, if somebody said, "Yeah, we're going to sell a $12 Diesel," you would have gotten laughed out of the building. Like it just wouldn't have happened. So thankfully, and thankfully to our loyal Diesel fans out there, uh, these guys know cigars. They understand what a good cigar is and what a good cigar should cost. And Esteli Puro is not super premium, but it's definitely premium. I mean, it's 10, 11, $12 depending on what size you get. The Whiskey Row franchise between the sherry cask and the original are all between $8 and $11. And then all the limiteds that I've come out with, Hair of the Dog, Disciple, Crucible, Delirium, they've all been 10 plus. So I was getting a lot of feedback from guys like yourself that started smoking Diesel years ago when it was just an internet catalog brand. And I really hadn't come out with anything in that value space, in that everyday $5 banger, like something that's good, non-offensive, solid, but something that doesn't have to be a special occasion cigar, something that doesn't have to be, hey, this is my one $10 cigar that I'm going to buy this weekend. And I listened, and honestly, I really wanted to do it. I just the reason it took me so long is to try to find the tobacco and the blend that would be a phenomenal blend, but also the cost associated with that blend wouldn't make it a $10 cigar was very challenging. And it took AJ and I a while to do that, but man, I think we hit it out of the park.
And that was my question here, Justin. And please don't mistake my tone. I just like this evolution that you've taken us on with Diesel. I really have, and you know this. So we've spoken offline a number of times about it. But to go it back with Sunday Gravy, was there ever a fear that this was redundant, like this was a step back, maybe? Or, I mean, was there ever that kind of apprehension, or I mean, were you fully confident the whole way, like, hey, no, this isn't going back at all. This is just another iteration.
Yeah, I think another iteration is definitely the only thing that ever crossed my mind. I didn't really have any fear of going back because to me, this is still part of the evolution of the brand of Diesel, and especially the Diesel under kind of my quote control. Um, I looked at it as an opportunity, to be honest with you, that we've had the privilege to launch these amazing brands with these great tobacco stories that typically come at a higher price point. And I saw an opportunity to still make a great cigar with a great blend at a lower price point. Because I mean, we look, a lot of us in this industry, man, we get a little full of ourselves, and we like to toot our own horn. And yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that buy 14, 15, $16 cigars. But man, I'm still interested in that guy that is taking his hard-earned dollars and is like really looking for a great value under $8 or something around that $5 and $6 range. And who am I to go, oh, my brand has reached a level to where it's just not incumbent upon me to have a cigar of that price point. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that don't, and that's great, but I'm not those companies. And my last name is not a name that's synonymous with cigar maker. I'm a first generation cigar maker. So for me, man, if there's a guy that can leave the register with a Sunday Gravy and feel like he got the better end of that transaction, I'm all for it.
Well, see, and to kind of follow up to that, I think that's where you guys really start off on the right foot with Grind, was because Grind was this departure, obviously, from being online only. We're going to brick and mortar. This is what we're doing with it. We're launching this whole new initiative. And Grind wasn't immediate. It didn't immediately go from online pricing to that, what we're smoking now, that
Oh,
$12 range. Grind was a little bit in that in between zone. So it was a really nice stair step.
yeah, and Grind was a little bit of a different animal. So, so you're kind of you're half right. So Grind technically was never sold online. Grind was distributed through Meyer and Dutch, which distributed that brand. It was never online. So that's why that was the easiest migration.
Okay.
And that was a brand that was pretty much fully baked, came over, we sold it. I didn't really get involved until the Whiskey Row. When Whiskey Row came out, that was when I was involved in the blend. I was involved in the packaging. So Grind was a little bit of a different animal, but again, the price point was a little more affordable than the Whiskey Row. But it didn't have that history of guys buying it online for 5, 6, 7, 10 years prior to us selling it. So it was a good transition. So you're absolutely correct about that.
Awesome. We're going to talk a little bit more Diesel here in a second, but we're going to take this back a little bit to, again, back in the day a little bit. So, so we were talking a little bit about Halloween and our stories from then, and how it, I guess, in some way kind of perpetuated our love for gambling. But the other thing about your childhood into all the way up into a young adulthood was obviously your biggest passion before cigars was baseball. And you grew up in an Atlanta Braves fan. You're from the South, like we've talked about. And was it always the Braves? I mean, your household was Braves, or did you latch on to the Braves as a kid? Because I have a Braves story too. I'm a Red Sox fan, as everybody knows, but I have a Braves story here in a little bit. But what was the Andrews household? Was it a Braves family?
It was always the Braves, man. It was always the Braves. And being in North Carolina and us not having, our own team, we're a huge state for farm leagues. I mean, we've got some of the best single A, double A, triple A venues that you can go to. And so growing up, that was always there. But from a professional standpoint, the states usually, whoever we could drive to see. So you had people that were Baltimore Orioles fans and Atlanta Braves, but yeah, it was. I've been a Brave from day one, and two, being my mother being Cherokee and my family, we were very proud of the fact that we had a team that we could cheer for, that we could do our tomahawk chop and stuff. So I don't think I think I would have gotten kicked out of the family teepee had I been something other than a Braves fan.
Well, now that tomahawk chop's going away, man, it's a different time in 2021. It's nuts,
It is, man. It is. It definitely is, and you can imagine my stance, my passion around that, because again, it's something that for us it was always prideful. So yeah, the Braves were it, man. And again, my past, my history with baseball, there were definitely players on other teams that I would follow and would, become a little passionate about that team. But for me, it's been the Braves since day one.
And what a time for you to grow up as a Braves fan. We're going to talk about the 90s Braves here in a second, but growing up before that takeoff, I guess, you said you grew up in a Braves household. So like, did your dad ever tell you stories about like Hank Aaron and those, Eddie Matthews and those guys, or was it like what stories did you grow up on with?
Well,
with
what's interesting. So my dad is actually my dad's from the West Coast. So my dad was a San Diego guy, got stationed at Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, and has been a North Carolina transplant ever since. But even growing up on the West Coast, he was a Braves fan. So yeah, so growing up, stories about Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews and these guys. I mean, it was always something when baseball season came around, and a lot of times we couldn't get the Braves on TV, but our local radio station would carry the Braves games. So like a lot of times me and my dad would be sitting around the radio listening to Atlanta Braves baseball. And it was, Skip Carey and listening to Don Sutton. I mean, it's a lot of good memories around the Braves and childhood. And when I really became aware of Braves baseball, you're talking 91, 92.
Right.
Man, what a great time to really start being able to comprehend and retain. I mean, I still have memories of playing the Minnesota Twins and hating Kirby Puckett. So it's all fond memories, man.
I mean, and that was what a transition, like what an instant overnight transition that was. Cause I mean, the Braves were, the 80s were dog shit. I mean, the definition of worst to first, with the Doyle Alexander trade to get this kid named John Smoltz, Tom Glavine. Then they sign a free agent out of Chicago named Greg Maddux. But even that, like, it's really funny hearing, and I've heard interviews from all three of those guys. And if you're like, there's this, he's currently pitching for the Rays. He's gone back and forth between the bullpen and starting rotations for the Mets, the Rockies, the Astros. His name's Colin McHugh. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he has a podcast called the 12-6 podcast, and he's interviewed a slew of players and people around the game. And first of all, he's a really great interviewer. Second of all, I got to send you the link, Justin. He did a John Smoltz interview, and I swear to God, man, that interview took me back to 10-year-old Bear and watching the Atlanta Braves, because we didn't have cable growing up,
right?
And so and I grew up in El Paso, Texas, so like talk about a person without a team either. Like we didn't really have baseball on every night, and so like my dad would tell me Red Sox stories, and so I would follow the box score in a newspaper. There's a foreign concept for a lot of people out there. but I would follow that. But that's all I knew of the Red Sox and Mike Greenwell, this guy named Roger Clemens, Wade Boggs, but we always had the playoffs that we got to watch every year. And in the 90s, we saw a lot of Braves. So we were, and my dad growing up played minor league ball for the Red Sox. That's how we're, and he's from New England too. So that's how we became Sox fans. And even though that we were still a National League family. So we always rooted for the National League because it's not like the Red Sox were making the World Series back then. So we were rooted for the National League every year. So we became default Braves fans. So I got to know these teams really well. And so talking to guys like you and Ben Lee and stuff like it takes me back to my childhood because I mean, Braves were very much a part of my household too. We weren't a Braves house, but we were Braves fans and we followed these guys pretty religiously. So it was pretty cool. During that time and everything. Now, so here's a fun question. So okay, silly as this might seem, who are you more excited about in those mid 90s pickups? Were you a Greg Maddux guy, or were you more excited like Marquise Grissom or Fred McGriff pickups? Like which
yeah. So in that time, I mean, you know how it is when you're playing Little League baseball. We're all doing everything. We're pitching, we're catching, we're playing middle infield, outfield. I mean, I was doing everything. But in those days, as my coach would tell me, I was more of a thrower and not a pitcher, right? So I was passionate about position players. Now I was a big kid, so at like 12 years old, I was 5'7", 140 pounds. So like when I would stand on the mound, the kids would be intimidated because none of us knew where the pitch was going to end up.
Oh, so you're Randy Johnson.
Yeah, so it was, and I would have games where, I'd walk 4 people and strike out 10, and like that's the or some games I'd walk 10 people, strike out 4.
Nuke Lelouch, all Bull Durham.
Yes. So at the time, of course, I loved Tom Glavine. I loved John Smoltz and all those guys. There was Steve Avery, it was, but I was a position player guy. So the Mark Lemke's of the world, the Fred McGriff, the Ron Gant, David Justice. I mean, Jeff Blauser, Terry Pendleton. I can go down the list. It wasn't until I got a little bit older that I was able to appreciate what someone like a Greg Maddux, like how he was able to dominate with a fastball that topped out at 88. How he was able to work both corners of the plate, his 2-seamer. But at the time, as like a 10-year-old, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I was definitely more into the position players, the Fred McGriffs of the world.
I honestly forgot who the batter was, but I remember the story from this interview that I was talking about with Colin McHugh and John Smoltz. And John asks Greg Maddux, he gives up a bomb to somebody. And it was really like, John, so he comes back into the dugout and John's like, why'd you throw that pitch there? Like, I mean, what were you thinking? You knew that's what he was looking for. And he, clearly he tagged these, like, what was going through your mind? Like, was that a mistake? Did you miss your spot? Like, come on, he was just completely befuddled. It was really comical hearing John retell this story. And Greg Max, the college professor that he looked like, just kind of looks at him dumbfounded. He's like, you jackass, I'm setting him up for the playoffs. And that's how his mind worked. Like he was, we talk about like the metaphor is, like Japanese and Chinese culture and business. Like the Americans, we look at the next, fiscal quarter, and like the old adage is that the Asian markets, they look at the next 25 years.
Right.
They look big picture they're always considering big picture. And that's the way that Greg Maddux played the game. And I mean, obviously was very successful at it. So, but you brought up Steve Avery, and that was the thing about this interview too. is that, and I've heard all three of those guys say it. I've heard John Smoltz say it in this interview. I've heard Greg Maddox say it in another interview. I heard Tom Glavine say it in the interview. They'll all tell you that Steve Avery was the better pitcher, and that injury just
To a
reeled him.
man, they say yes. I've heard the same thing, which is, I mean, which I mean, what a group of guys
Right.
to say that. But Steve Avery, I mean, I was just going through this. I was thinking again, another guy that I was a big fan of was Mark Wohlers. I mean, as a dominant closer that came in with a fastball that topped out, 100 plus. That team, I mean, it does go back to, obviously I was a big Bobby Cox guy, but it goes back to that kind of talent, and to walk away with one World Series is tough.
Yeah.
And as I get older, and the more I appreciate those teams, because, and I've heard Greg Maddox say what you said earlier about setting guys up for the playoffs, because again, when you're playing these divisional games and you're setting guys up through your rotation, I mean, it was amazing to see these guys kind of turn it on to another gear in the playoffs and start working the count backwards, throwing these guys out. Because again, when you're facing a guy, whatever the number would have been back then, 20, 30 times, 50, 60 times, it's amazing that he had the foresight to go in and go, yeah, I'm setting him up for the playoffs.
So you're looking back at those Braves teams, the early 90s, mid 90s, all culminates in the World Series in 95. Was 95 your favorite memory, or did you have another Braves memory that kind of stuck with you?
90, I would say, it's so funny. I haven't thought about a lot of this stuff in a long time. Obviously 95 was the pinnacle. And the thing that was kind of special to me is there were some guys on the Indians that I was a big fan, like Albert Bell, Kenny Lofton. I mean,
Mayor of Cleveland, man.
Yeah, these guys were people that I looked at, so 95 was a big year.
Right. Kenny Lofton came and played for the Braves for a while too. And Jim
Thome was with the Indians back then.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, you think about the Indians, like that was the big year, the 95. If you look at that lineup, so it was that, if you look back in history, it was that classic starting rotation versus that stacked lineup. Jim Thome, the Alomar brothers.
Oh yeah.
And the weak link of all of them, who was a master of the infield, was Omar Vizquel, who fucking batted ninth, right? And who was but I mean, by today's standards, like Omar Vizquel would still have the same career that he had 25 fucking years ago. He would still have it today because he was consistent at the plate, 240, 250, yep. and played, the middle infield, like, he wasn't Ozzie Smith wizard like, but I mean, he was close. But I mean,
yeah.
And it's those guys, and Manny Ramirez was on this, a young Manny Ramirez. I mean, and then their rotation was nothing to sneeze at too. They had an aging Oral Hershiser. They had Charles Nagy. They had Jose Mesa closing out that bullpen.
Yes, Jose Mesa. I forgot about Jose Mesa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Paul Ossenmacher, like the old guy, who just, like, that series is still, I mean, outside of my Red Sox series, like 04, 07, like outside of those, like my most memorable World Series is 95. It still is.
And arguably the Indians, that was the best lineup that we had ever faced in a World Series. And it's some of the other teams that we had played, we had an easier road, but I mean, arguably we won against the toughest competition that we had in a World Series, which is kind of ironic, but no, looking back, I mean, they're all good memories. I wish we had been able to come away with a few more chips from those appearances.
Oh, for sure. So, this is my I guess my last Braves question and everything. So when, as that kind of dynasty was not dying, because it went on for like another 10 years. I mean, Bobby Cox won, how many division titles in a row?
Yeah.
And was always in the playoffs every single year, but they just, but there was a young kid that came up at the tail end of those glory years named Andrew Jones. And man, when we talk about peak, like someone playing at their peak, at his peak, like someone asked me the other day, like, have you ever seen another, like, you've probably never seen another player like Mike Trout. And I'm not saying that Andrew Jones is Mike Trout, but damn, he was close. I mean, he had 5 tools. He was incredible at his peak. It was a shorter peak than Mike Trout has played at, but damn, was he good.
Defensively, he's the best center fielder of my lifetime. Like that. I mean, from full blown, of an age to where I was following every game, getting every box score. Andrew Jones, I sat with a scout once that talked about Jim Edmonds making some over the shoulder grabs, and they graphed out the speed of Jim Edmonds and the distance that he covered. And they showed a similar, Bear was amazing, a similar ball flight from trajectory to off the bat speed. And they mapped out where Jim Edmonds, the famous catch,
right?
He's diving over the shoulder, basket catch, catches it. They had basically mapped it out and shown that Andrew Jones would have been standing there catching the ball like a routine pop-up. I mean, he made it look so easy that people just they weren't able to appreciate his greatness. I mean, you are correct. His peak was a little bit shorter. He fell in love with the long ball, packed on some weight, but defensively, it would be hard pressed to find somebody that played the position better than he did.
There were a lot of players I look at around that time, late 90s, early 2000s, that went out west and just never recaptured their glory. Juan Pierre is another one from the Marlins. Yeah. Like Andrew Jones, but I mean, watching peak Andrew Jones was probably some of the most exciting off both 5-tool baseball that I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, outside of Mike Trout, it's 1A, 1B almost. Peak.
What a way to come onto the scene,
18-year-old kid, called up to the playoffs. Yeah, it was nuts.
Hitting a home run in the World Series. Yeah. I mean, we all went out and bought his rookie card like that. This was the second coming of Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, this was the new kid on the block. I mean, he's still, I don't know that he's a Hall of Famer. He is in my book, but it was quite the career. And you're right, he was part of that next generation that came up and really helped keep the Braves relevant.
Well, so Andrew Jones was actually the second quote unquote kid that came up in the playoffs, right? And I know you remember the first. We'd be hard pressed to talk about it. So back in 1993, the Braves bring up this 21-year-old kid, plays 8 games, nothing crazy. He goes 3 at bats, but he goes 2 for 3 in his major league debut, essentially. In 93, 94, he's injured, plays minor league ball for the whole year. And then they bring up this kid in 95, places second in the Rookie of the Year contest, named Chipper Jones.
That's right. Good old Larry.
Yeah, good old Larry Chipper Jones. And so he kind of made his presence. And so this was the thing that I didn't really understand. I was still learning and understanding development and stuff like that. And I remember watching the 95 series with my dad, and I was like, Chipper Jones, why does that sound familiar? And he's like, well, he's having a hell of a year, son, blah, blah. And I was like, no. I said, he's been around for long. He's like, no, he's a rookie. I was like, no, he's not. He's been around for a while. And so my dad and I, my 12-year-old Bear and my dad are going at this. And so I bust out my Topps cards. And in 1989, he was drafted out of high school. So I had his Future Stars baseball card from Topps. And I was like, oh crap, he's been playing minor league ball this whole time. And I didn't quite understand it. And that's when I learned all about what minor leagues were really about, and development of players and talent and everything. But I mean, that was a heck of a time too to come up. And I mean, he hit, he played in 140 games, 23 homers, 86 RBIs. He batted 265 in his rookie year, and then his sophomore campaign, he bats 309. Like, I mean, just and Jack's 30. Like
Yeah.
the guy was just, I mean, the guy was just a incredible talent. And that's that was a career that we got to see from the very beginning go all the way to, and a rare thing, right? We saw peak Andrew Jones, and Andrew Jones moved on, as we know, and fell off the map, unfortunately. But we got to see Chipper play for Atlanta for 19 years.
Man, we got to, I mean, and even in a first ballot Hall of Fame career, you got to see kind of the peaks and the valleys. I remember him getting moved to left field. I
Right.
remember him, the question was, could he play third base anymore? Then I remember him coming back. Like, I remember the injuries. I remember the years where people were questioning, why is he still switch hitting? Because his numbers were so skewed from the left side to the right. And then to see it all kind of come back and him maintain a level of excellence was amazing. Yeah, again, Mike Trout is kind of the poster child right now, but Andrew Jones, Chipper Jones, these guys are generational talents. I mean, there's not a whole lot of these guys popping up every day.
No, absolutely. So some good times to be a Braves fan. It was in the 90s, man. We had a lot of fun watching those games, and following those players and stuff. And some of these players are going to come up again here in another segment, so hold on to that one. But so wanted to go back a little bit to some cigar chat. But before we do, it occurred to me, like you said, that was in the picture that I showed earlier of your Mayhem outfit at Halloween. It occurred to me that was, like you said, an early Instagram post, and you still have the same screen name, Just in Time 11. Where did the handle come from?
I do. It was, yeah. So, yeah, you would think, I guess if I took my career seriously, I probably would have changed that at some point. But yeah, man, it was, my name being Justin, there's all, just in time. My uncles would call me Just in Time, or hey, Just, it was always a thing. And again, in the early days of Instagram, which when I started my account in 2011, it was Just in Time 11. So not not anything really thought out there. And I maybe it's laziness. I don't know. It just never occurred to me to really change it. Or yeah, I'm not, I'm not one of these guys that's going to put, like, Justin Diesel cigars or I mean, I've got a lot of brands. So if I were to go that route, I could be Justin El Rey cigars, Justin Sancho Panza, Justin Boulevard, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So, and I'm sure the company would probably prefer that I keep as much distance between them and myself as possible on social media. So yeah, so that was that's the reason for the name there.
Was number 11 was that your number in
No,
baseball?
that was
No,
the year.
that
That
was
was
the.
the year.
Oh, okay.
Just in Time 11.
What was your number when you played ball?
So I was, like I said, I was a big kid. Not heavy, but big. As I was tall, I was one of those kids that, my parents had to laminate my birth certificate to take to the YMCA for my basketball games because all the parents thought I was like 16, and so I was a tall kid, really athletic, and being that, and I was able to swing the pole a little bit. Mark McGuire was like, one of my all-time favorites. I played first base. So at first, so there's two things. I was a huge Jeff Kent fan for the Giants because I played second base for the majority of my career. Even in high school, I played second base. I was really quick off the bat. I had great hands. And high school, my early, probably freshman, sophomore year, I was about 6', 6'1", and Jeff Kent was kind of pretty large to be a second baseman. So I was number 21 was my number. And then when I got switched over to first base, I was a big Mark McGwire fan, so I went to number 25. And then ultimately in college and in the minors, I was number 19. So 19's kind of stuck with me. But everybody wanted to be Big Mac, and to be Big Mac, you had to be number 25. So that was kind of my number for a lot of years there.
So you mentioned how you actually progressed and everything. So you played all through your childhood, played high school. Did you get drafted out of high school? Was there any interest in you in out of high school?
There was some interest in me. Unfortunately, I was coming home from a camp. I'd signed a letter of intent to play with University of North Carolina out of high school, and coming home from that, I actually got I got hit by a drunk driver, and kind of had some adverse effects, as you can imagine. So that happened. That happened in the fall. So right as I was going in to be a senior. And so once that happened, I missed my senior year, and so I had to recover from that. So that kind of took me off anybody's draft board there. But thankfully was able to make a full recovery and continue the career. A little bit of a detour a little later than I had expected. But no, I was not drafted. That was the goal though, was to be drafted. So some of the guys that I played with on my team got drafted, which was cool. But yeah, we had a good group of guys.
Anyone we know?
No, I wouldn't think so. We had one of the guys I played with, Jeremy Jones, he went on to play at HBCU, North Carolina A&T, and was the HBCU National Baseball Player of the Year. Was second team All-American. He got drafted a couple times. He got drafted out of high school. Got drafted his junior year. Was part of the Mariners organization for a while. I was let's see who. I played in a summer league with Josh Hamilton as he was coming back from rehab. So Josh is from Sanford, North Carolina. I'm from Fayetteville. They're about 20 minutes apart. And it was funny because all of us knew of, he's a couple years older than I am, obviously, but he was part of the group that was just ahead of mine. And we all knew him. We all watched him play. And when he was coming back from rehab, he was playing in this summer league. I mean, way before any type of major league rehabilitation was coming. And they would let him play in our league, but he wasn't allowed to pitch. That was the only caveat. So I can say I played against him. I played with Lonnie Chisenhall, who had a good career with the Cleveland Indians for a while. A guy named Seth Maness, who was a closer for the Cardinals. But these are all guys that either played in tournaments with, played against, not necessarily on my travel team. I did play against Jacoby Ellsbury.
I remember Jacoby,
AAU national tournament. So it's it's cool to look back and see, at the time we're all, 16, 17 years old, to see how these guys have how their careers ended up.
So I never knew about the accident, Justin. So I mean, was it upper body injuries? Was it lower body injuries? Was it all of the above? I mean,
it was all of the above, man. It was pretty rough. So I had some leg injuries, I had some shoulder injuries, had a pretty severe head injury as well. So I'm very, very thankful that I had some angels around me that night to protect me. The drunk driver who hit me actually died in the accident, and more often than not, the sober person is the one who passes away. So I was definitely blessed and fortunate to still be here. So, a lot of I get asked about it a lot. A lot of people, because obviously it'd be natural to be bitter and be angry, but I'm thankful that I was able to make it through it, because as you can tell, all of us have probably got a story or two that more often than not, I wouldn't still be here today. So very
That's for sure.
blessed.
And you still got to live out your dream to a certain extent. You played professional ball. I mean, you didn't make it to the show, but I mean, you got to play professionally. I mean, that's even after that. I mean, that's incredible.
Well, I owe a lot to baseball, because during those times, it's tough. You see people. I mean, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move. Had 2 years of basically intense physical therapy to get back to where I could regain all my abilities. But having baseball gave me something to fight, gave me something to fight for, gave me a purpose, gave me something to get up every day and go to physical therapy and push through the pain and manage the setbacks. And we talk about sports a lot. Obviously, we're sports guys, but there's so much more to sports than just sports. It's so much more than a game. And so for me as a teenager who had one goal, one dream, to have that taken away, but still have the ability to say, hey, if I work hard and with a little bit of luck, I can still kind of live out this dream, whatever version of the dream will be. And thankfully I was able to do that. But had I not been involved in sports, had I not, and I did everything. I had baseball, basketball, football. Obviously, I had my future was in baseball, but had I not had that, I don't know if I would have been able to push through a lot of the setbacks and adversities from being in that type of accident. So I'm very, very thankful that baseball's been good to me. We had a bad breakup there a few years ago, but we've gotten past it, and I look back, it was a lifesaver for sure.
So you were committed to UNC. You obviously didn't go, right? You ended up playing at
Did not.
East Carolina, right?
Did not. Well, so I was by the time I was medically cleared to play baseball, I was the ripe old age of 20. So I was a 20-year-old high school graduate that was enrolling in college, and I had a lot of colleges that obviously were really interested in me in high school. But once something like that happens, I mean, and
Oh yeah.
it's you take 2 weeks off from BP and hitting. It's baseball's not like riding a bike, so it was pretty unheard of for someone like myself to have taken to be away from the game for 2 years. 2 critical years as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of schools that used to send me Christmas cards and birthday cards and randomly show up at my church on Sunday, politely declined to give me a chance. And so what I did, I went and played JUCO baseball for 2 years, just to see if I still had it, honestly. And I had 2 good years. And at that point, I'm 22 years old, and so rather than going and trying to go play D1 and then not being able to be drafted until my junior year, I had an old scout from the Marlins that had watched me all through my career, basically in high school, gave me a chance to basically be a undrafted free agent, invitee to spring training. And so you're 22. They throw a little money at you, and I knew my window was closing. And I'm sure you know this, but at baseball, most programs, most organizations, they calculate about 4 years of development it'll take to get you to the show.
Right.
So as had I gone to college, had I gone and transferred to a bigger program, at that point I would have been 23, 24. It's my window was shut, so I had my one opportunity. I took it. Like I tell people, it was shorter than a Cuban coffee, but I was there. So it's nothing but love, nothing but good memories for sure.
A great story, man. What a story of perseverance, man. That's awesome. That's I never knew that. I never knew that story about you, man. That's fantastic. Um, So to kind of compare it to, it's incomparable, but to compare it to like someone modern day, like there was this really great talent. I'm from Texas here, so I got to see this kid named Jerkson Profar come up in the Ranger system, and this guy was the number one prospect in all of baseball. Like he was going to be the next big thing, and he missed 2 years because of injury. Nothing nearly as traumatizing, horrific as yours. But like you said, those are critical years. Those are critical years of development. And then he's still in the show. He plays for the Padres. He's a journeyman. Plays infield, plays outfield, and that's he made it. He made it to the show, but and has had a career. So, but yeah, those critical years can really completely throw it off and everything. There was
Yeah, and
another.
there's
Go ahead, please.
well, I was just going to say, actually, you being a Red Sox fan, it just occurred to me. I played with a guy named Blake Maxwell, who was a submarine pitcher, big guy, about 6'8", from Fayetteville, and he bounced around, but he was in the Red Sox organization for, man, I think it was like probably 7-8 years.
Yeah, I remember the name.
Yeah, I think he may have had an appearance or two in the show. Not completely sure, but a journeyman who stuck it out and gave it his best when I had to make the decision to hang up my cleats. There was still an opportunity there to kind of try to give it a go, but the odds were I would have been a 30-year-old guy that was still bouncing around, because I knew my time had passed. But I have a huge appreciation and a lot of respect for the journeymen and the guys that never gave up on the dream, that said, hey, in spite of adversity, the odds or whatever. And you've seen, I mean, we've all seen the stories where the guy, not too recently, I think he'd been in the minors for like 12 or 13 years and got called up a second baseman. I can't remember the team. Mm-hmm. So there's, it's for the love of the game, man. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, those great stories. There's a lot of them in baseball. That's the great thing I love about baseball. There's everyone's got a story and everyone's got a saga, and it's just it's fun to kind of see, whether they make it all the way to the show or whether they just make it. It's awesome. It just in a not so similar way, but similar in the term of similar in the sense of unconventional. Your rise into, I mean, let's call STG what it is. I mean, it's one of the top companies in the world for premium cigars, and I mean, you came to STG as through the boutique world, and it wasn't like you had this long tenured career in boutique manufacturing and brand development and anything like that. I mean, to equivalent to baseball terms, it was like a cup of coffee almost, and then you get called up to the quote unquote bigs, right? No disrespect to the previous brand you worked for, in no way, shape, or form, because it was really great that the run that you had, but to get this chance with STG and then they hand you this really challenging project with Diesel. We've kind of been around that in our last time that we spoke together on the show. But so, and then in the last year, so General makes this split. We've got General Cigars and their brands, and then now there's this new company called Forged, and Diesel is under this umbrella. So talk a little bit about why the decision was made. I know this wasn't your decision, but why was the decision made to make this brand delineation? Like what's difference between what we commonly refer to as General and now with Forged? Because I think people still refer to Diesel, Bolivar, and Sancho Panza and like these brands that you mentioned a moment ago. They refer to them as General brands, but really they're Forged. This is a completely different animal.
Yeah, we are arguably the largest cigar company on the planet, and we have a lot of brands, a lot of legacy brands, a lot of new brands, a lot of household names, and as we continue to evolve and innovate, it was becoming more and more challenging for one sales rep to go to one retailer and try to sell 27 different brands, and all these brands, we want to give them as much attention as we can, as much nurturing and development as possible. And it's hard to do that because again, we're in a portfolio aspect, we're very top heavy with a lot of the brands like Macanudo, CAO, Punch, Cohiba, La Gloria Cubana, Partagas, Diesel. So there was a lot of brands that we weren't able to pay the amount of attention to them that we wanted or that they deserved. And so basically what Forged became is a distribution house. So all of us work for STG, marketing, and sales, but Forged now through Forged, we've got the ability to have a separate sales force that has a separate focus. And some of these brands that are not as big as the ones that I previously mentioned now get some of the attention that they deserve and get that focus. So that's the key driver with Forged, is we wanted to really support our brick and mortar retailers, really give them a better opportunity with our brands. And again, it's our guys have big territories. And so now we're through this separate sales organization, we're able to really service our retailers in a deeper way.
So one brand that I'm really excited about to see new breath launched into it is Bolivar. And I know this necessarily isn't your brand specifically, but that is something I'm really excited about. I hope you guys make a turn for it, because Bolivar is one of my favorite brands, like historically, and it's one that hasn't gotten, like you said, a lot of attention over the years. It's because you've got so many. It's you've only got, even the largest company in the world only has so many people, so much bandwidth.
Right.
And it's one of those things. But that one I'm really excited about, and it seems like from guys like they're working alongside you there, like Nate McIntyre and a couple of others, that are really kind of putting their foot on the gas a little bit with Bolivar and a couple of these other companies. So I'm hoping it really turns into something, because it'd be great to see some of those come back to form.
So I took over the Bolivar brand 2 years ago.
Right.
So I launched the Bolivar Cofradia, which we launched last year in May, which again is a challenging year to launch something, but we had the inventory. But I went through and Bolivar to me is one of the most aesthetically pleasing presentations out there. It's very classic. You can, if you see Bolivar Cofradia in retail, you can see where a lot of these companies got the inspiration for their brands and their design and their packaging from Bolivar. It's a brand that's been around for a long time. I wish I could give you the full details, but unfortunately we're a couple months out. But there'll be some exciting news coming out in the coming months with Bolivar. As you know, I lead this collaboration division within our company, and so I've collaborated with one of my favorite cigar makers on the planet, and we're going to have a new Bolivar offering coming out pretty soon. So you guys you'll be very excited.
Is that AJ? Is that, or are you allowed to say, or am I?
No, it's not AJ. No,
okay.
So it's obviously we collaborate a lot with AJ, but through this collaboration division that I've been fortunate enough to kind of lead. We've we did the War Zone with Eric Espinosa. Did the Cohiba Serie M with El Titan de Bronze, and we've got a few more coming out in the coming months. So, and Bolivar is one of those brands that we're going to have some fun with. So,
that's great.
So I'm excited to hear that Bolivar is one of the brands that you like, and Nate and the rest of the gang at Forged will be. They kind of have an idea of what's coming, but they'll be excited. So yeah, Bolivar is one of the brands that I've been working on a lot here lately, just to try to bring it back to top of mind for a lot of folks. And the cigars are awesome. The blends are great. And yeah, I'm really excited about the things that we're doing with that brand.
Will you permit me a guess? If I already guessed AJ, but would you permit me another guess? Can I do that?
You're free to guess all you want. I'm not going to give you any indication of who it would be. That would spoil the surprise.
Well, that's
And
fair enough. That's fair enough. Well,
and
I'll put it out here. You know, if you want to blink twice for yes, no, I'm just kidding. But I think the initiative that you started with Espinosa and the, you know, this introducing these boutique manufacturers and giving them the spotlight, if you will, and introducing some of these classic long tenured brands a kind of revitalization with this is pretty cool. But Bolivar, it'd be interesting to see who you'd work with on that. I think it would be like, so, you know, you were talking about, we talked about AJ and it's the signature that he provides. And I was actually going to ask you about this. So I think this is a good time to talk about it, but like, you know, you partner with Espinosa, and I know there's some history with some of the folks over there, including Jack Tarano. And I know you've been a fan of their stuff for a long time, and they have Lazona Cigars has that signature flavor, that signature pack, that signature thing too. It would kind of be a almost kind of a like 180 if you worked with somebody like, you know, like Tabsa or like a Dion Giolito of Illusione or something like that. And so I think that would be an interesting take or a divergence onto
well,
you
that's
know.
yeah. I mean, the thing about all these guys that and the guys that I kind of gravitate to, they have a signature style. They have a signature flavor profile there that they go for. And obviously I'm a big fan of, I've mentioned it on your show before. I'm a big fan of a lot of people that do things a little bit differently than the rest of the crowd. So I mean, Dion would be on anybody's list to work with. These guys, Matt Booth is on anybody's list. Pete Johnson. I mean, the list goes on and on and
Sure.
on. My thing that I'm excited about is one of my main reasons for kind of leading this collaborative initiative here was to, one, we've got a tobacco library that a lot of these guys don't have access to the type of tobacco that we've got. And so to be able to take someone like Eric Espinosa, Jack Tarano, Hector Alfonso, take them to our factory and give them the ability to work with a Cameroon wrapper, which previously to Warzone they weren't able to work with. That's the things that keep me going, that get me excited. I also, you know, want to show people that the artisanship and the craftsmanship that we have at our factories, and also highlight their brands as well, because I subscribe to the belief that a high tide raises all boats, and we're such a small industry, and all of us, I mean, are friends and family, and I mean, even Jack, you know, Jack worked for me at General Cigar. Now Jack works for Eric at Espinosa. I smoke Espinosa cigars. They smoke our cigars. You know, the list goes on and on and on. We're just, it's a great industry to be in, and I love what these guys do, and I'm excited the opportunity to be able to work with them, not only at our factory, but work with them at their factories or the factories that they work with. So it's going to be as shocking as it was to see a General Cigar rep walk in and sell a box of cigars that had Espinosa on it. That's just the beginning. So there's going to be some shock value coming out with this stuff that I want to do. And Barry, you know me better than most. I like to be disruptive, and I love when people message me and go, "What the hell are you doing?" That, to me, that's a win. So even our pal Coop was like, "I don't get it. I don't understand it. How is it a collaboration?" And I love that. I absolutely love that. It's my favorite thing, because, you know, for years the perception was that we were just the same old General. We did the same thing. We had these massive brands, and I think over the last few years, we've been able to show you guys that we're innovators and that we can do some pretty cool shit.
Yeah.
And working with a lot of my friends in the industry, which you will see next year. We've got some exciting stuff. I wish I could give you all the juicy details, because I'm like a kid at Christmas. I don't have kids, but I imagine as like a parent, you're sitting there and you're like, your kid's about to unwrap the present, and you're like, this little fucker's about to get excited because I know what's in that packaging. So I'm the same way. Like, I know what's coming. I know what I've been working so hard on for the last 2 years, and I can't wait for you guys to see what's in store. And ultimately, it's about the cigar. So I'm geeked out about some of the blends we've been working on, and I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised. And there'll be a lot of people out there going, "What the fuck is Justin doing?" So I'm excited.
Well, yeah, I think we're all fluttered about that. So as long as I don't find out from Cigar Aficionado this week that
There
you
you
released
go.
it, as long as I don't find that out, then that's cool. No, but go back to the Bowl, because I am excited about Bolivar. I am, and that's cool that something cool's coming down the pike. But with the release of Confradito that came out last year and everything, it was pretty quiet. Was that kind of intentional by y'all because Forge was this new thing and y'all wanted to kind of stair step it a little bit, or was it because of COVID, did it quiet it down? Like what?
It was COVID. It definitely was COVID because, again, at the time when I launched Cofradia, you're talking May of 2020. Our reps were not on the streets. The world was shut down, and so we weren't able to kind of put it in the mechanism and really launch it and support it in the same way. But we did it because our retail partners needed product. A lot of people didn't have product. This product was ready. And so I went ahead and said, yeah, let's let it out there. Now, one of my other brands, El Rey del Mundo, is what we launched with Forge. So that was the beginning of this year. That was February of this year. So as you can tell, they keep me busy over here.
Yeah.
But that was the first brand that we actually launched through the distribution effort of Forged.
Well, something we are able to talk about tonight. This is something you and I were talking about a little bit before the show, and this is exciting news. So we were talking about your unconventional pathway to your position in general. STG, they hand you diesel. You've taken this thing for a ride, and it's done extraordinarily well. And a lot of opinion makers, myself included in this industry, Justin, for all the ball busting that you've taken, I know your your reputation with Aaron Loomis preceding it, but everything, but the work that you've done with diesel has been incredible. And now with Forged and taking some over these brands and moving them along, they're STG is doing the right thing. So they are officially promoting you. You are going to be taking on a new role and a new position. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this? Because this is exciting. When you told me, I was super stoked for you, and I couldn't think of anyone more deserving at your company. With all respect to your colleagues, because you've got some incredible people that you work with, but I could not think of anyone more deserving of a promotion than you.
Well, I appreciate it. We usually give Coop the scoop, but I think you're getting the Bear exclusive here. We've got to come up with something that gives you that has a nice little ring to it. But no, so and it's a few hours before the announcement will be made. But yeah, my company's given me another opportunity to grow and take on a new challenge. But I'm now, and it's funny, I can't even remember the title because it's so new. But I'm basically I've been promoted where I'm in charge of new product development, both within the company and outside of the company. So as you know, as the largest premium cigar company on the planet, and with the amount of factories we do, not only do we make cigars for ourselves, we make cigars for a lot of other people. And through the relationships that I have with these other companies, I've now been given the opportunity to kind of be in charge of producing cigars for other companies. So I'm thrilled. I'm excited. There's a lot of like corporate lingo that I won't bore you guys with, but the nuts and bolts of it is I'm a cigar maker. That's what I enjoy doing. And now I've got the opportunity to not only make cigars for STG and the brands that I manage, but I'm also given the opportunity to make cigars with some of our manufacturing with all of our manufacturing partners. So whether that's cigar shops that have private label product that are produced at our factory, or some of my dear friends in the industry that use our tobacco in our factories to produce their cigars. So I'm thrilled. I mean, at some point, I think Skip Martin said it. We're all a little surprised that I've lasted this long. so it's nice that they still see some value in me, and I haven't worn out my welcome just yet. So I'm excited, and I'm excited the opportunity. It's always a challenging thing with SDG. They don't ever give me a layup. So it's whether it's diesel or making cigars for other people, there's always a challenge. But I'm excited. So the announcement for it will be coming out tomorrow about that. So yeah, it's almost 12:30 here on the East Coast. So you get a couple hour advance on the press release there.
That's fantastic. So is like a director of collaborations, or like what's the? I mean, like you said, you couldn't necessarily.
So it's all it all. So now, kind of under my umbrella, is a few things. So you've got the brands that I manage, some that are more well known than others. Diesel being one of those. But there's also brands like Boulevard and El Rey del Mundo, and the list goes on and on. And then under my responsibility is also the collaboration. So again, our collaborations with other factories like El Titan de Bronze, our collaborations with other manufacturers like Eric Espinosa, and a few more that'll be coming out here in the next couple months. And then also developing cigars for other manufacturers as well. So
wow,
so I'm excited. It's all part of the creative process. And man, I got to tell you, I'm thrilled. I'm tickled to death that I now 100% of my focus will be making cigars for, like I said, not only myself but for some other companies out there.
That's absolutely beautiful. That's wonderful, Justin. Congratulations. Well deserved.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Yeah, your invite to join your show, the timing was good because yeah, this will be a busy week for me, but excited and celebrate a little bit this weekend. So excited to start this new chapter.
That's wonderful. So will you still be working with Diesel, or is that going to be handed off to somebody else now?
I will. So Diesel's kind of my baby here. So as long as I'm still willing and able, I'll continue to work on Diesel.
That's wonderful. That's good news for all those Diesel fans out there, for sure. Well, moving this right along into a couple more of our fun segments here as we start to close out tonight's show, Justin. Again, we always like to do our one must go segment. So I thought we'd go back down a little memory lane a little bit. We talked a little Braves, so I thought we would do a Braves one must go a little bit. So we're actually going to do two editions of this. We're going to do pitchers, and we're also going to do infielders. I thought those were probably some of the more random ones. I'm a big Ron Gant fan, but I left the outfielders out of this because we talked about some of the other, Andrew Jones and a couple of other players and stuff. So I'll get the hardest one out of the way. We'll do the pitchers first. So you remember the rules of one must go. One's got to go. Okay.
Oh.
So I know this one's going to be the hard one. This one's the most brutal. Okay. But the next one I think is going to be a little fun too. But so we're going to talk pitchers. So the big three: John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, and Greg Maddux. Which one's got to go? And I'm going to participate, man. I'm going to put myself on the firing line too.
It's so. I mean,
it's the hard one. It's the hard one.
Yeah, it's really difficult. Glavine. What we always called Glavine the mechanic. That's I believe that was that was Glavine's nickname. You had Mad Dog Maddux. I would be inclined to say John Smoltz, but I remember it was so cool that John Smoltz revived his career coming in, as a closer.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the most dominant closers. Yeah, one of the most dominant closers for a few years. That split finger fastball. God, that's tough, Bear. I would, if you had a gun to my head, I would probably say Tom Glavine, just because I normally would be Smoltz, but just because he was able to kind of come back and reinvent himself. Maddux, of course, is untouchable.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if one had to go, it would probably be Tom Glavine.
Yeah. So I have similar thoughts as well. This John Smoltz career is so important to baseball today because the prominence that Tommy John surgery now has. But before then, before John Smoltz gave everybody hope because before John Smoltz, if you had Tommy John surgery, it was it.
That's right.
It was over. Your career was done. You know, Nolan Ryan could have done it when he blew his arm out on that last pitch that he threw. It was like fucking 104 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know, Tommy John, obviously himself. You know, it was a death sentence. And John Smoltz came back and not only reinvented himself once, but twice again, because he came back as one of the most dominant closers in the game. And then he went back to starting and was still damn good.
Yeah.
So John Smoltz has absolutely got to stay. I am a huge fan of all three of these guys, but I am a Greg Maddux guy. It was so great to watch him pitch all those years, and for all those teams too. Even when he went out west, the Dodgers, the Padres, and just see him kind of, still have fun and still be dominant with his.
Right.
You know, we saw him at his peak throwing 88, which was something to behold. But I mean, if he hit 85 on the gun in those latter years, that was a good night for him.
It was a good night for old man.
So Tom Glavine's got to go. But man, I just remember watching all three of those guys in just awe every single time they took the mound. It was just, they were incredible, absolutely incredible. So it was great to see those. That was the tough one. So we both picked Tom Glavine to go, begrudgingly.
Begrudgingly, yes.
Yeah. So here's the fun one. Now none of these guys are Hall of Famers, but they were part of this early to mid 90s Braves run, and they were staples in the lineup every single night. And they're great cast of character, good baseball guys. You hear about all these guys now. There's some with like off the field issues and stuff. None of the Braves guys really had that. None of the Braves. But these three guys, I feel like these were almost in the background. If you weren't a Braves fan, they're almost forgotten, but they were so good during that time. Everybody was so good. So here are those infielders. Here we go. Jeff Blauser, Mark Lemke, and Terry Pendleton made up that left side of that. I left off the first baseman. Before Chipper Jones, there was Terry Pendleton. So we got Jeff Blauser, Mark Lemke, Terry Pendleton. Which one's got to go?
Oh man. So Mark Lemke. So those three guys were my first like memories of Braves baseball. I remember I had I forget the baseball game on my Nintendo. MLB, I forget, but I remember
World Series baseball on Sega.
World Series, yes, on Sega, World Series baseball. And I remember I had a phenomenal year one year with Jeff Blauser. He was batting like 340, hit a couple bombs. Like Jeff Blauser was one of my all-time favorites. To bring this full circle, when I was in high school, we used to always go to and play baseball in the Terry Pendleton showcase camps. And so Terry Pendleton, he's been around for a while, obviously Braves hitting coach for a long time. Mark Lemke was one of my favorite. Got a funny story I can tell you sometime when we're off air about Mark Lemke that's for another day. But if I had to pick, I was definitely more of a Blauser and Lemke guy than Terry.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about Terry Pendleton. I love that guy. I thought he was just a great player for no particular reason. All these guys, I mean, when you look at their career lines, they were for the most part pretty forgettable. 246 career average for Lemke. But I remember Lemke hitting a bomb in the World Series, and that was pretty cool. Hitting from the number 2 spot. This was before the number 2 spot. Now the number 2 spot is almost like this. It's the new number 3 or new number 3 hitter. The number 2, like that's where Trout hits a lot. Bryce Harper hits a lot in the 2 spot. Some other players that are like some of the greatest hitters in our time right now are hitting out of that number 2 spot. So it's interesting. It's interesting how the evolution of the game, like the Red Sox tonight, Kyle Schwarber hit leadoff. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
Kenny Lofton's rolling over, like like thinking, what
it's
the
it's
hell?
it's all data driven now. I mean, it all goes back to Moneyball. It's amazing that the analytics have become, because again, baseball is traditional. Baseball doesn't like change. I mean, there's still the DH debate, but getting driven by analytics now, these guys are plugging holes in different places, and they're running these simulations to show that now the output from that number two slot is so important when it comes to things like advancing the runners, and a lot of it is still kind of the old days. When I played, your number two guy was working the count, was hitting behind the runner, and now they're putting some studs there. So yeah, it's interesting to see the evolution of the game for sure.
Yeah. So despite my love for Mark Lemke, he's the one that's got to go for me. I just love Jeff Blauser. I loved Terry Pendleton. And I just all three of those guys, and those Brave teams for me will always hold a soft spot in my heart. I love those guys, every single one of them. And we got World Series baseball on Sega Genesis, man. Took him to the series because there was nobody on the Red Sox team that I really wanted to be. So it's just um and even as much as I followed the Red Sox and the box scores in the paper, which again, foreign concept to everybody that's listening, like I knew every single player on that Braves roster, just like I knew everybody on the Red Sox roster. Like I knew them like the back of my hand, and it was really, really, really cool. And then this has been a lot of fun tonight, kind of going back and talking to someone who actually got to see a lot of those players play a lot more than I did, and kind of grew up with them as well. So that's kind of been fun. So that was our one must go. Of course, always sponsored by United Cigar, brought to you featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabay and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. Now, this is we're coming up next in 2 weeks. I'm taking next week off. My sister's getting married, but in 2 weeks we'll be coming up on the 1-year anniversary of this next segment, which I can't believe it's been a year, but I'm really excited about it. You've had the opportunity to participate twice in it now, so you're bringing back your charity of choice. This is my charity segment where we feature a nonprofit or charity of my guest choosing, and bring a little spotlight, raise a little money for a good organization. And you've selected once again your friend Brian Berman, who former head of CRA, is now head of Project Mañana. So Justin, I know you talked a little bit about it last time, but for those who haven't listened or heard the great story about what Brian's doing with Project Mañana, why don't you tell us a little bit about why it's important to you and spotlight it a little bit?
Yeah, it's a charity that's near and dear to my heart. I've been supporting it for a long time. Brian was one of the first guys I met in the industry back in 2010. Really helped support me and my brand at the time. So we go way back, and Brian basically gave everything up in the cigar industry and in his professional life to move down to the Dominican with his wife, who was from the Dominican, and they started this charity that they've created schools, they've created after school programs, missionary work, food banks, right there in the Dominican Republic. I can't say enough good things about it. Fortunately, our industry has been supporting him. Carlito Fuente and the Fuente Newman family are big supporters of what he does. Guys like Rocky Patel, guys like my old partner Lou Rodriguez has done a lot for this organization. But it's such a selfless act, and he is investing in the future of the kids in the Dominican Republic. And these, we're so fortunate here in the States, even those, the people who have the least of us, are still so fortunate to be here and have the resources that we have. And as you know, Bear, prior to COVID, I would spend about half my year between our factories. So I would spend months in Nicaragua, months in the Dominican Republic, months in Honduras. So I get to see some of the challenges firsthand. And to have someone like Brian that made the I mean, you're talking about a guy who lived outside of LA, worked for big companies, and was a influential guy in our industry, and to give all of that up and to move to the Dominican and devote his life to the betterment of others, and especially the youth of the Dominican Republic is something to be proud of and to be celebrated. So yeah, Project Mañana. I sponsor some kids down there. They've got a
Oh,
couple. They've got a couple different options for people that you know, again, anything helps, but you can do $30 a month. You can do $60 a month, which basically that $60 a month feeds, clothes, and educates a kid for an entire year. So there, it's a really good organization, and they're doing some great things. It's a very transparent organization, so you see where your dollars are going. And yeah, he's been doing it for I think probably 8 years now, 7, 8 years.
yeah.
But yeah, big supporter. So if you guys look it up, Project Mañana. Again, Brian Berman, he's on social media. He's friends with everybody in the cigar industry. So if you look him up, you're going to have some mutual friends in common if you're not friends with him already. But yeah, give his charity a look, and like I said, any donation or any type of continual giving really helps them and supports a good cause.
This is the thing about the cigar industry. We forget about how much time we're in it sometimes. And how long we've been around and everything, even though well, you're young. I'm old, but
I'm feeling old
uh,
these days, man. I don't feel as young as I used to.
well, they're actually just celebrating their 11th anniversary. I saw that on their website today.
Oh, well, there you go.
11,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
11
good
years.
Lord,
Yeah,
11 years. Yeah.
it's crazy, man. So they've got some great projects. You can I put the link in the chat. You can select different projects, ongoing projects, one-time projects, and even if you want to support the missionaries that are involved, including Brian and his wife. You can do a one-time donation, a monthly donation, and it's truly a great cause. I'm pleased that I'll be later tonight. My wife and I, Justin, just like last time, we'll be making a small donation in your honor.
Oh, thank you. That's fantastic.
So it'll be it's a great organization, everybody, and what they do down there is absolutely nothing short of fantastic for for a country that gives us in this industry so much joy and so much celebration and so much enjoyment, with these cigars and everything. It's important to support the communities that create this, and this is a great example of that. And so Project Mañana, like I said, you can go to projectmañana.org. The link is in the chat. I'll be posting it later in the show notes as well. And they have things like there's everything from clean water projects to education projects, prison projects, or like I said, you can support even some of the missionaries, including his wife, Brian, and his wife Nebraska down there in the Dominican. So great stuff. Thank you, Justin.
No, thank you for giving me the opportunity to spotlight them. I appreciate that.
My story about Brian Berman that I love to tell is, early days of CRA, right? I was like, I'm going to join this organization, and I joined it, and I got assigned a member ID number, and I was trying to log in with my member ID number, couldn't get in because I wanted to sign the petition. And so I wrote a not a complaint, but a little contact us page or help email, and I get a call. From someone in the like 9 o'clock at night to help me get through this issue. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Thanks for calling me so late. And I was like, what was your name? He's like, oh, it's Brian. And I was like, Brian Berman? And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, you can help me, sure. And Brian actually helped me troubleshoot that issue, and I was able to sign the petition that night. My first night as a member of CRA, so it was a pretty cool Brian Berman story. So got a couple more questions for you, Justin. Going to go down memory lane a little bit more here, in terms of growing up and everything. And it was more than just sports. I know that like every kid, we all have favorite movies. We all have favorite music groups and bands and singers and stuff. And so I was being the sports fans we are, and it was no shock to me. The actor that starred in the film that you cherished as a kid was no shock to me because I'm a big Field of Dreams guy.
Yeah.
To me, it's my favorite movie of all time. And definitely my favorite baseball movie of all time. But it's close second is Bull Durham, but also Kevin Costner, right?
Yeah.
But your movie as a kid, you were telling me it was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which is also a Kevin Costner film. What? I love the movie. I'm not knocking it, man. It was one of these things that totally caught me out of left field. These questions I asked you ahead of time, I was like, well, I knew it was about the Braves and, all this other stuff. But man, when you told me Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, man, that caught me way off.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it, depends on like kind of what part of childhood we're talking about. So like when you were asking me about Halloween, I was thinking about, when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, learning how to play, poker with Halloween candy. And at that same time frame is when I was watching, I got introduced to the movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And I don't know if you remember, but they used to, and I mean, I was young, so I had to be 7 or 8 years old. They had this you could buy, it wasn't like Legos, but it was basically like this Robin Hood thing that you built, where you built the village with the huts, and you had
the action figure
the,
set. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
the zip lines. And man, I just remember for that time period, like I was obsessed. It was such a cool movie. I had a bow and arrow. I'm outside shooting bow and arrow in my yard. Even some of the neighbors, we started shooting at each other till our moms found out, ruined everything. Saved a couple eyes and limbs probably. But yeah, so in that time period, like that was my jam. And it's funny because it also Kevin Costner. Now, as I got older, it was definitely more Field of Dreams, Bull Durham. And honestly, man, and I still think I'm kind of in the minority for this, but my favorite baseball movie is For Love of the Game, which also is Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
And but you're talking a different time period too. I think when For Love of the Game came out, I was maybe 15, 16 years old.
Yeah, we were in high school. Yeah, we were in high school at that point. Yeah.
And so different time, your different thoughts. And that movie just, it encompassed everything for me on an emotional level of what you deal with being a professional baseball player, with your personal life, but also the love for the game and the adversity and the obstacles that he had to overcome. So that, again, that was one of my favorite things. But
well, kind of similarly to a parallel to your own life too, right? I mean,
yeah, and honestly, I think given what I've gone through, like it kind of the movie meant a little more to me. Had I not gone through what I've gone, I mean, it's still one of the movies that I watch at least once or twice a year. Like I'll throw it on a flight or something. I've got it. I bought it on like my iTunes.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man. But in the younger years, the before the teenage years, it was definitely Robin Hood, like popped in my head when and of course I was like any kid, Mighty Ducks was a big movie for me. I loved watching Mighty Ducks. But yeah, Robin Hood was one of those things that I always watched. And it's amazing, dude. I mean, it's Kevin Costner too. Like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. I just started. I guess I'm late. I just started watching Yellowstone this month, and I'm like, and a buddy, actually my buddy who's sitting here with me in the cigar shop, I was like, what is everybody flipping out about this show for? And he's like, it's Kevin Costner in a cowboy hat on a ranch. What more do you need to know? And it's like, so, and it's the same thing. It's like baseball movie, Kevin Costner. What more do you need to know?
Right.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Kevin Costner, Morgan Freeman. What more do you want?
Right. Yeah, Alan Rickman, the all-time bad guy. Yeah, I mean,
Rick, yes.
So my memory, there's a couple things here I wanted to take off with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was. So my favorite character, and I really do like it. That's why I said I wasn't gonna give you shit about it at all. I really do like the movie too. It's one of those things I can watch on a loop. But my favorite character, as great as Kevin Costner is Robin Hood, and he's good. And man, I think Robin Hood's two thoughts of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. One, it completely derailed Christian Slater's career because
Yeah,
Christian Slater was a little bitch
yeah.
in that movie, and he never recovered from it. Like he was
No,
on his
he
way.
did it.
He was on his way to being a star, and then he took this role, was a little bitch. Everyone fucking hated the guy, and he was never able to. He was never able to claim the stardom that was probably rightfully his. So hats off to
Yes.
him for playing the little bitch and being the supporting actor, playing second fiddle to Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman in this, or third fiddle rather. But yeah, that's thought number one. Thought number two, this is a controversial take. As much as I love Kevin Costner in that film, I still think the best performance is Morgan Freeman as Azim. I love like
Yes.
his sarcastic wit, um, the constant ragging that he gives on Kevin Costner the whole movie. Like you have to get old as you get older, you appreciate it a little bit more. It's a little
Yes.
bit more comical. He's like the bit where he's like, you know, when he shows him the telescope for the first time, and he's trying to poke the guy that he can see, like because of the sea. He's like, and they're about to leave, and he just has this very subtle under his breath kind of like, oh, they call me a barbarian, like just
Yeah.
he's terrific in it. I mean, he is hilarious in it, and it's a really unusual role for Freeman because Morgan Freeman doesn't have a lot of those. Like if you look back at his career, he does. I mean, despite the time that he plays God in a movie, like he doesn't really have those comic bits. Like he doesn't have a lot of funny lines. You know, he's the guy from Shawshank. You know, and he
Right.
was president in Deep Impact, and you know, Driving Miss Daisy. Like he had these very serious roles. You know, but yeah, that he's my favorite character in those movies. So last thing on this, Kevin Costner. Here's a question. I asked Miguel Shodell, our good friend Miguel Shodell, the same question. He did the Field of Dreams show, like you did Gladiator with me. Is Kevin Costner the greatest sports actor of all time?
Man, it.
Bull Durham, Field of
Yeah.
Dreams,
Field
for
of
Love of the Game.
Dreams.
Tin Cup. Okay. Not on anyone's like must see watch, but McFarland USA, and one of the worst movies about football ever, but is a total rewatch. Draft Day.
Yes. Yeah. I like Draft Day actually.
I like Draft Day too. Like it is a guilty pleasure film. I will watch that shit on a loop. I don't care. Like the whole like pancake eating motherfucker thing is just the fucking tits, man. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to think of somebody whose career, you know, through sports films, and I can't think of one really. I mean, obviously you've got, you know, Robert Redford who's got a couple films to his credit, but in my lifetime, like for my money, it's Kevin Cosner all
It
the
has
way.
to be. I just can't really think of anybody else. I'm sure our resident encyclopedia Coop will come up with somebody else, but
Oh yeah, well even our regional sales manager for the Southeast, Nick Nanzuati, who's like, you know, he was a film critic. He's Mr. Blue Checkmark. I'm sure he would have something to say about it.
Oh, he probably hates some of those Costner films. So like,
but for my money, man, Scott, do you any sports guys compared to Kevin Costner? See,
What I think is Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes,
yeah,
maybe.
Snipes had it.
White Man Can't Jump, The Fan,
Major League.
Major
League, yeah.
Yeah, so Wesley might be a bit of an underdog candidate there.
Stallone with the Rocky films, but that to me that's like what he's known for. And I mean, they're iconic. So I'm not knocking Stallone, but he didn't really do any other film. But I mean, the Rocky franchise on its own stands kind of better. The other one, now this is an unsung hero. Speaking of 90s kids that we are and sports films, Omar Epps.
Yes.
The Program, Major League 2, and for Love and Basketball.
Yes, man, I forgot about Omar Epps.
Yeah, everybody does. I mean, Other than that, what did he do? Right? Like other than that with his
Yeah.
career.
We got another Wesley Snipes movie, Wildcats.
Wildcats,
So
right? Yeah.
yeah, so that's
The Woody Harrelson trifecta: Wildcats, White Men Can't Jump, and then Money Train, which wasn't a sports movie, but yeah, those guys were a heck of a duo for sure. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I love the Kevin Costner sports movie. Like I will go see it now. Like if he did another movie, I don't
Oh,
care.
100%. I think one of the things that's endearing about Kevin Costner is he's a baseball guy, like
Mhm.
through and through. One of the most disappointing things that I felt like so obviously Brad Pitt did Moneyball, the Billy Bean story, and I saw an interview and Brad Pitt was like, well, it was a challenge because I'm not a baseball guy. Like
Yeah.
he was like, I dove into the character. He's like, but
And
obviously
I thought
for
he
me,
did good. I love that film.
oh, he did great. He as an actor, he did what he was. I mean, he did a phenomenal job. But it's just like I think part of the endearing quality of Kevin Costner is when you watch him in these movies, he's a baseball guy. Like
Right.
when he showed up at the Field of Dreams game and he was emotional, like you knew that meant something to him, and it was beyond a movie. It was about the game, and so that's where like some of these other characters that play sports characters, whether it's coaches, GMs, athletes, it's just it doesn't mean as much when you find out that they're like, I've never swung a bat in my life, or I can't dribble a basketball if I had to. So I think that's one of the things that I like about Kevin is it's part of who he is.
Absolutely. So that leads us into our last question tonight, Justin. I've kept you for a while, but I've had fun tonight. I hope you have had too. I know it's late, and like you said, you got a busy week with this announcement of your promotion and everything coming up. So this has been fantastic, man. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did as well. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. And the good news is my boss from Europe will probably be emailing me here at 3 a.m. my time. So it's not too much. Only like 2 more hours before the workday starts. So
yeah, you'll get in and he'll just be really appreciative of you. He's like, man, Justin is a go-getter. This is fantastic. So before I go into the curveball, who is the favorite Braves player of all time? Is it
Who's
Andrew
my favorite
Jones?
baseball player
Is
of
it
all
Chip-
time?
Yeah, is it Chipper? Is it Andrew Jones? One of the pitchers we mentioned? Like, who's the favorite Braves player of all time?
My favorite Braves play, man. So as a kid, it was Ron Gant. Then it kind of morphed into David Justice. And then I was a huge like Andres Galarraga fan as a third baseman / first baseman. Chipper Jones, obviously. I would say, but this is probably 30 for a loop. My favorite Atlanta Braves player, and as of right now, the only Atlanta Braves jersey that I have that my mom hasn't kept from when I was a kid was Mr. Ryan Klesko. Ryan
There you
Klesko
go. Yeah.
was my guy.
That big wide stance at the plate.
His high follow through, dude. Whatever it was. I get that was probably right around the time where I'd actually put a few over the fence, and so yeah, he connected with me.
All right, so we're not going to get into this as much as I wanted to because of the interest of time, but I asked you who your favorite band was growing up too, and well, it didn't catch me for a loop because it's totally apropos for the time as teenagers. But your favorite band growing up was Creed.
So I really thought you would devote a whole segment to the
I kind of wanted to, but it's not. It makes sense. So for like if now you could have really railroaded yourself and said Nickelback because for whatever reason, there's like these 3 generations of people that have just piled on with Nickelback and made them like the bastard child of music.
Oh yeah.
Like, look, they're not good. I'm not trying to give them any redemption here, but like it's really comical to me. But
they
Creed
don't
was
deserve everything that's everything that's piled onto them, because I will say, having gone to a Nickelback concert, they did play stuff that was not like to me it was almost like they're 2 different bands. This is what's going to be mainstream and this is what's going to get played on the radio, and then this is more of our like almost heavier metal type sound. So I begrudgingly went to a Nickelback concert, And I was like, man, this was not as bad as I thought it would be. So
Yeah.
that's not saying much, but
Yeah.
but,
Not,
but
it wasn't as terrible as I thought. Yeah, no. So Creed was it. So Scott Stapp, lead man for Creed, that kind of scratchy voice that kind of was pretty prominent during that time in the 90s as far as lead singers was going, the Rob Thomas and
yeah,
that kind of era of singer. So the curveball question is three-parter. Okay. And so, and it's, what diesel cigar would you smoke with these three individuals? So I'm going to name them for you. So what diesel cigar would you cut and light up with these three individuals? We'll start with the only Braves jersey you own. We'll start with Mr. Ryan Klesko. So what diesel cigar would you cut and light and smoke with that man, with Ryan Klesko?
I feel like probably not knowing whether or not he's a cigar smoker or not. Probably the most universally liked cigar that I have, and is the original Diesel Whiskey Row. It's not overpowering. It's got a lot of flavor, but due to that barrel aging process, it tames some of the wildness of the Nicaraguan tobacco that AJ uses. So to me, it's a very middle of the road cigar that someone who maybe only smokes on occasion, it's not going to burn them out. It's not going to overpower them. Guys like you and I who smoke every day, there's flavor there and there's consistency that we enjoy. So Whiskey Row is my go-to for someone that I don't really know their palate just yet.
Okay. Well, a guy we know has probably smoked a thing or two in his day, Mr. Scott Stapp, with that raspy voice of his. So what would you light up with Mr. Scott Stapp?
Oh, it's
Creed.
Scott. I'm going full blown Diesel Delirium. Full
Delirium. I knew you were gonna say it.
Yeah, I'm going with some high octane, some everything that embodies the brand Diesel and Nicaraguan tobacco. It'll help his voice get a little raspier. So I think Delirium is what I'd light up with him.
All right, now the hardest one. Here we go. Mr. Kevin Costner. What diesel cigar would you light up with Mr. Kevin Costner?
Kevin Costner to me is, he's refined, he's elegant, but he's a little rough around the edges too. He can he as the character that I'm watching in Yellowstone, he knows his way around a horse and a ranch and can handle a rifle, obviously, in many of his westerns. So I'd give him a little something that's maybe that has some refinement, but is a little more rough around the edges, a little more no gimmicks, no fuss, just hey, it is what it is, and that'd be Esteli Poro.
Esteli Poro.
That's what I would go with for old Costner there.
That was actually I had only one cigar picked with one person, and Kevin Costner, and I was hoping you'd say Delirium for Scott Stapp, but I'd do the Esteli Puro with Kevin Costner. I'd smoke one with him for sure. So, all righty, and of course our curveball segment always brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Sock has been knocking them out of the park 6 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Yep, I looked it up. I even got fact checked by my partner on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition, Mr. Will Cooper. So that was our curveball segment, and this has been our 186th take. Man, nice little fun ride down memory lane for 2 90s kids who have found their way into the cigar industry. One obviously more successful than the other, but still a lot of fun to be had, that we get to call this industry home and have fun with it. So it's good times. So thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Bear. There's not a lot of people that I would stay up to 1 a.m. to talk to on a Sunday. And that list is small and you're on it. So no, I'm always have a good time. I appreciate, because I know we're going to have a good discussion. I know it's not going to be just about cigars. And again, there's plenty of time for that as well. But no, always enjoy the conversation. We've got similar backgrounds and memories coming up in the time that we did. So it's always a good chat. Are you you got anything planned for the big 200th take? I imagine that's got to be something that you're thinking about down the road there.
Yeah, 14 takes away. Got some things in the works. Gonna hopefully have a great milestone show, and got a couple of things working, just like you in Forged, and with your collaborations and everything. Not necessarily anything it's cemented in yet, but it'll be fun. Nevertheless, we're excited about it. The 4-year anniversary show is coming up next month as well. Early next month, I'll have Tim Wong will be back, Pier 28 Cigars. He was my very first take, and I always bring him back every anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
so a lot of fun there to be had. But everyone out there, thank you for staying up late with us. We're gonna let Justin finally get some rest until he catches his boss's email here in a couple hours. And but I really appreciate everyone, all the likes, shares, and comments. You can check out our YouTube channel, ELOSOFUMAR. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit the like button on our Facebook page. That's where you can find a calendar of all upcoming events. And as always, if you are listening later, whether on podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you hit the download, subscribe, and review button. Please hit the unsubscribe if you already are a subscriber, but please don't forget to hit the resubscribe button, because that really helps my numbers, and that's really what convinces Justin to come back each and every time I've asked him to. So thanks everybody. This was our 186th take. I'm Barry Duplessis, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Euless, Texas. And guess what, everybody? See you next time.